So, Doug, this is a fun time for me because rarely has two people on a podcast talked where one of them left the other at the altar. And this is more the altar of business. Doug, do you want to share the story? What happened?
Well, I mean, I'm happy to. I would just say that you and I had an extended dialogue of discussion, and you presented a very ideal opportunity to come alongside you. And I would just say that I tried to understand why I would be dumb enough to say no, and never could quite come up with the reason, but I was dumb enough to say no. But in full circle moment, had I come and work for you, I don't think I'd have gotten an invite on the podcast this early. Like you wouldn't have taken an existing employee and asked him to come be on your podcast. So I'm just going to say it was fortuitous in the sense that it allowed me to get to chat with you today about big worldly things. So we did have a good dialogue, and it is a moment I will definitely reflect back on. But God has provided well for both of us and paved a really cool journey since that time. And now I'm getting to hang out and talk to you on a podcast.
No doubt. Well, and what you're leaving out is, and I want everyone to hear this, it was between me and Tim McGraw. And guys, I was winning. I was literally winning. And that is a great thing to be able to say, to win over the great Doug to come work with me. And then all of a sudden he's like, I don't think I'm going to work with Tim. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, he's about to say yes, Sprinkle, build all these things. And he said, but there's this whole Eric Church and Morgan Wallen. Have you heard of them? And Doug, I kind of get the vibe that you were just looking for a way. You said it a nice way. I think you were looking for a way to say no.
No, not true. Not true. It was a blessing of two incredible options. I just, I don't have an MBA. I don't have an undergrad degree in finance. I was just worried about getting behind the curtain and disappointing a guy who's managing people's money. So I had to be responsible, and that sport management master's degree can only take you so far. What it has allowed me to do is work with really high profile, big personalities. And I thought that this would be a continuation by going the direction I went, but really did I not know? Like, you would have still given me that big personality challenge.
Thank you. And I'm taking that as a compliment, actually.
If you want, take it as a compliment. I'm just saying I could have gotten the opportunity to deal with a big name and a big personality and all the fun pleasantries that come along with it with you. But here we are. It all's come full circle in a cool moment. So it's great.
And we're talking, and I would say we're better friends than even we were back then. Have had major life experiences we'll talk about today.
Absolutely. Yeah, we have, I guess we've known each other now for what, maybe 3-4 years. It feels like we've had life moments and experiences together that many friendships that are lifetime in nature don't get the pleasure or the challenge even to have experience together with each other.
Heck yeah, brother. Let's be honest. Life's messy. Decisions are complex. And it's not all black and white. But these are the decisions that shape our growth. Welcome to The Tension. Let's get into it. All right, everybody out there, welcome to The Tension. We are so excited, guys. Today, the man, the myth, the legend, the AD of Baylor Athletics, Doug McNamee, is joining our show. Doug, welcome to the show.
Travis, thank you in advance for your support of Baylor Athletics through future NIL giving. It is an honor to be with you. I'm sorry it's A&M's loss is our gain, but it's good to be able to sit and chat with you.
And to be clear, that is not true. I just want to make sure all Maggie fans in there, that's not true. Okay, so what we're talking about today, Doug, here's what we're talking about. This is The Tension, where we talk about things in people's lives that are tensions that, frankly, they just have to learn to manage, and they're never going to solve. And I am so excited for people to hear your specific tension, which is the tension of pursuit versus letting go. Pursuit versus letting go. How many of us out there have been trying to go after something and pursuing, but there was that moment in which we also had to figure out we had to just let go the outcome. Doug has done that, and I am telling you, especially Baylor Nation out there, this is going to be one of the most favorite podcasts you ever heard, because you get to hear behind the scenes how a guy that came from Magnolia, declined me to join me, then goes to Field and Stream, comes all the way full circle to his first job of Baylor Athletics, but actually runs the place. Whoa, talk about pursuit versus letting go. The pursuit worked out for you, Doug, but we're really excited about it. So before we get going, Doug, this concept, and it's a tension like you can't solve, but like, why is the tension of pursuit versus letting go like such a hard one for you or for really anyone out there to deal with?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great mutual friend who wisely coined the phrase, it's a tension to manage, not a problem to solve. And I think that, Dan was really great about, I would say personally, helping me to understand that those are just going to be, true existence in your life that you can't fully resolve. You just need to learn how to best manage. And, for me in this moment, when we talk about those two things, we're competing forces where a relentless approach to hold on to something while simultaneously being free and being open and surrendering the outcome to a higher authority and to what God's plan was. And so it would say moments, there were days where it felt like I'd go back and forth in different directions, which is the story of just balancing that tension where you feel like you're in a tug of war at all times. And one side, you got a little bit leg up and you're pulling a little harder, and then you think you're losing and it's about to let go. You let go, and you're like on the last strand and you rip it back. And that genuinely has been the internal, I would say, quandary and juxtaposition that I've dealt with this specific topic for an extended period of time.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, my story. I mean, I have dealt with this so much, and I do feel like because we both can agree on the higher authority and like, hey, God, like I'm just going to give this over to you. You've even walked with me, and how many times has the best things happen after I let go, even though that wasn't what was promised? It's just so funny how the clarity is actually the gift. And then if you end up getting it or not, you actually stop caring because you're good either way. But, Doug, we have our 3-step, process of trying to figure out tensions, which is you got to see it first. There's so many tensions. I mean, shoot, there's thousands of them probably. And many of us are walking around feeling anxiety about them, but we don't even see them because we haven't given them a name. And then once we see them, you have to learn how to accept that you will never solve them, which then leads you to that third, step of just managing them the rest of your life because it's a journey forever. And so, this tension of pursuit, right, versus letting go and kind of like handling both of those. When is the first time that you felt like you really saw this as a tension, that you really understood that it was a tension?
Yeah, I mean, I was always someone, and I know some people operate with this in mind and some people don't. There's no right answer to whether or not you have this approach. But, I've always been someone who has kind of set an end goal and tried to figure out how do you work backwards into that outcome. And for some people, there's a little bit of magic of life that takes away from. And so I certainly respect those that don't like to do that. But that has been something I'd say very early on, as I started to set goals in my life, that has been a practice. And so doing that, is certainly formative in terms of ensuring decisions are made with an end goal in mind. And I think that's whether that's specifically with life or with intermediate steps along the way, or just projects or tasks that you're trying to take on, there's value to that. But so you can have an end goal and you're making decisions to say, hey, what's in the best interest of hopefully helping to achieve that. And so I would say that's something for me life-wise that I've done for an extended period of time. And I've always kind of said, hey, this is where the objective and what I'm trying to accomplish has been. The danger that exists in that is that it's often a binary circumstance where either you achieve it and you're successful, or you don't and you fail.
That's right.
And I think that in itself creates its own set of challenges to consider whether or not it's a good practice to do. And in candor, over the course of the professional journey I've been on, there have been moments where I've evaluated in this exact point of like the tension. If that is existent and I don't achieve it, how do you measure success? And is it yes or no? You were successful, or no, you weren't. Yeah. And there's a little bit of a sobering moment when you start to say, okay, you agreed to this commitment of setting forth a goal, and if you don't accomplish it, it's a black or white answer. And, what does that mean and how can you define success? And I'd give myself moments where I would go on both sides of the equation where I'd be like, yeah, it's yes or no. You didn't do it, accept the reality. and just own the fact that you didn't achieve it. You failed.
Yeah.
And then there would be moments where I'd be like, well, I don't know if that was a fair way to evaluate success. And in those moments, I'd be like, okay, guess what? That's just you trying to console yourself for not achieving success. Get off the mat, stop whining, and stop changing, what success looks like just because you couldn't achieve it. And that's something I would say that has probably really, to some degree, illustrated that tension of pursuit versus letting go, is that question of what determines success. And how do you measure that? And that's something for, decade plus, where I've really probably had some assessment associated with that. And from a seeing it standpoint, that's how I would best describe the journey of identifying and recognizing. That's a back and forth, tension in your head that I've been constantly weighing with.
Well, it's so good, man, because I think that, especially for winners like you, that you define, especially as an athlete, you define it by the scoreboard. It's just if the scoreboard says that I lost. And so that's just a loss. And I think that the best athletes out there see those failures, see those things as actually the stepping stone to get you to the next level. But I think it's such a pickle, because what you don't want to become is the lame person that's like, hey, I'm pursuing it, but I've already let it go. And if I fail, because then you lose the eye of the tiger. So how have you, because to me, that's more of the accepted part, which is like, hey, I see the tension, but how have you learned to accept it? Again, we're going to spend so much time on the AD and all of that storyline, but just as a person real quick, it just seems like it's one or the other, the binary, either I am surrendered to it and I lose my drive, or I have such a drive, but if I don't get it, my identity is shattered.
Yeah.
That's the tension. How have you learned to manage through that, or accept it right before you even learn to manage it?
Well, and I think the further complicated, I'll give a little bit more color before I answer your question directly, but when you're—
By the way, that's a very good AD way to do it. Thank you so much.
When you're talking about something around sports where it's wins and losses are what dictates success, I think it even further, pressurizes the circumstances to say you did it or you didn't. There's no in between. And, there's been moments where as I've looked back and evaluated, I've said, hey, on the journey, did you achieve what you set out, even in the role that existed prior? And even in this current moment, what I have really challenged our team and myself with is, what does success look like? Because now that we're here, now that I have this incredible honor, and it is the honor of a lifetime. This isn't, it is success for me and for this department isn't just, you got this job. That cannot be the circumstance to which I can determine what is success looks like. Because that's not who I'm here to serve. The people I'm here to serve aren't saying, oh, great, we won because the guy who's leading us achieved his dream job. Success now is far different than what it was when the journey started, because success for me is very clearly if I don't do well in this job, if I don't deliver what I've set forth to deliver and the commitment I had, I would have preferred not to have it. I didn't get the opportunity to not serve this university well. I would have turned the job opportunity down if I didn't think I could do a good job. So now success has become a little bit more, less of hey, you thought this was the goal and the objective, but it was merely the first step to now achieve the larger challenge that sets forth. And so I just want to, I guess, clarify in the sense that when I talk about achieving, a lot of people said, hey, he's achieved his dream. I've now gotten a seat at the table to have my dream, and the success for the dream now ensures it's mandated that I bring value, and that I set out what I think success looks like now that we're in this department. How do we define success? How do we ensure that we're achieving it? I think it's very important not to lose sight of that, and not just be satisfied because you got the job.
Totally. But what would you tell some of the athletes, some of the people, because I agree. And it's going to be so fun to talk through, like, even the pursuit of getting that job. Actually, you had to learn the tension and accept it and manage it to get there. But like, I don't know, like in athletics and in those things, like, is it just a go for it with all you've got and get the W's, but then like, don't let your identity be so wrapped up that if it doesn't happen, you're just nothing anymore? I mean, is that the answer of this tension?
Well, and that's the challenge that athletes have to deal with, because anything less than a full commitment to success is ensuring failure.
Yeah, you're going to lose the game for sure.
You're going to lose it. Coaches, athletes, especially as you elevate to the higher level, unless they are totally sold out with, we have one clear objective. We're starting the season with the goal of winning a championship.
That's right.
Unless you have that as the true vision and goal, then you're going to get beat. And so the idea of having this relentless, radical approach to just focus and be radically focused on one outcome, but then understanding, when you look at, an athletic competition, there's only usually one team that ends the season with a win. And everybody else is dealing with what appears to be, quote, failure, in the sense that they lost their last game. And nobody wants to console in the moment to say, well, no, I was still successful. Look at the totality. In the moment, nobody wants to hear that. And no athlete or coach is consoled by that, because they're competitors and they want to win. And so it's only with perspective, it's only with the reflection that comes with time, to be able to appreciate all of the life journeys and the lessons, and, to put it in a spiritual perspective, the God plan that is setting up something that in this particular chapter may not have included the ultimate victory in that season. And so, it's just that is a hard quandary, Travis. You're really scratching at, especially in athletics, is really this whole thing of pursuit versus letting go. If you don't at some point come to grips with, there was only one winner and we didn't win, and you let go the fact that you can't just say that we just watched it and it was a complete failure and this was a disappointment, then you really are going to struggle with identity, because it becomes solely focused on winning. And there's going to be a whole lot more losers than there are winners. So I think athletics is a great, great place to really explore that, because in the moment, in the heat of the battle, there is no consolation for anything less than success. But with time and appreciation and a greater understanding of life goals and how this fits in, and competition and what it can mean, then I certainly think that develops people in that regard.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, speaking of athletics, because like I remember Scotty Scheffler, the golfer, I remember he talked about it even before he got out there and won another major or something. Just like, he had it so clear, I'm going to crush everyone. And I'm going to use my God-given abilities, and I will be number one up there. And it doesn't matter if I lose. Because he is so completely sure of who he is without winning. And maybe that's what it is. It's being sure of who you are without winning, but then almost winning because you have the ability to win and pursue that winning, that makes someone so well-rounded.
Well, and don't mistake that balance and that confidence in any sense as a lack of competitive fire.
I'm glad you said that.
Because it's he's a great example. You talk about someone that on the outside, they look like they've got just tremendous life balance. But man, I guarantee you that dude, that motor, that competitive juice, and I don't care if you're playing him in golf, you pick him up in a pickup game of basketball, you're playing putt. I promise you that competitive fire is at a level that's just unmatched. And so I think you can't confuse balance and just a little bit of just having a good context of the bigger picture with someone that's soft or that has any sense of let up as it relates to their desire to win.
That's it, man. Well, I think that's such a good start to this, because I do think, those of you out there that maybe don't even and aren't even able to see this yet, I mean, that's why we do the tension. You know that this is something that Doug's dealing with, I'm dealing with, everyone's dealing with, and we can't solve it, but like, accept that it's there and don't give in to the fact that it has to be binary and it have to be all or nothing. And if I don't do this, I'm nothing. And it's, it's all that, or just, it's okay if I lose, I don't play games to win. It's like, why are you here? You don't have to choose those paths, but to manage it, you do have to understand the truth of that balance that Doug's just talking about. So Doug, great intro to it. So I want to get to where I'm sure everyone wants to hear. And again, you could share in as much detail as you feel like, but I've heard this story twice, and both times I've gotten so inspired. And I'm just like, oh man, let's go. And so why not inspire the people out there listening of, just this journey of getting to be the AD of Baylor Athletics. My goodness, it means a lot to many. There's not many ADs in the nation, but for you, it actually meant even more.
Yeah.
And so can you first start maybe before, talk about the tension and all that stuff, just like your background at work, so that you could give a context of maybe why this job meant so much and the pursuit of it was like such a big deal?
Yeah, you bet. So I came to Baylor with the idea and the hope to work in college athletics. It was pretty clear to me that was the opportunity. And sometimes I waffled from, do you want to coach? Do you want to be in administration? But I knew I wanted to work in college athletics. So I came here as an undergrad, worked with the men's basketball team as an undergrad student, did master's degree here as well. And in that role, worked with baseball and student athlete services. So from an academic standpoint, all just intentionally using that time to help prepare me for hopefully a well-rounded experience to give myself the greatest opportunity to advance up the ranks. As I left grad school, went into a role which was adjacent to the university. It was sales, for corporate sales as it relates to the multimedia rights of the athletic department. So by all practical purposes, it was an athletic department employee working for a third-party sales organization, and that was tremendously valuable for me personally, because the investment on learning how to sell, learning how to engage with decision makers, there were CMOs, president, CEO of company, was just immensely valuable at that young age. And worked on that side for an extended period of time for 7 years, ended up leading a property at a pretty young age, and then used that moment to transition into the athletic department. So 7 years kind of on the edges of an athletic department. Then I had 5 years working inside an athletic department specifically in fundraising, external affairs, and was on the journey. Like I really was, you've got to serve your time.
You were pursuing.
I was pursuing. You got to do your respective tasks and learn how to raise money and understand the dynamics of a complex organization, which college athletics certainly is. And was really content and excited about the days ahead. And, there was transition from a leadership standpoint, and, the new athletic director was very kind to me, and not only, continued to retain me, but gave me an elevated role. So really in a good spot. And, out of nowhere, I shouldn't say out of nowhere, but there was a relationship that existed. But some dear friends, Chip and Joanna Gaines, started to have this meteoric rise as it relates to Magnolia and the fixer-upper empire. And they had built a company in a hyper-growth capacity and had established a 750 plus employee company with significant revenues. And just had a conversation with them where they were talking about a leader they had that was in an interim capacity that was segueing out, wanting to transition into retirement, and if I knew anybody. And that opened a door for a conversation, which ultimately led me to kind of a key milestone point, which is where, we talked about the pursuit versus let go. I let go and believed that God was calling me elsewhere. There was a once in a lifetime opportunity to help some friends serve in a company with just with amazing experiences and opportunities to be a part of. And that was a moment where I think I realized, hey, the college athletic journey has been amazing, but long-term may not be exactly what I had envisioned for what my life would be. And this is a chance to come in and lead a company and do something that I thought I could be very successful at. And so,
well, and Doug, just for anyone listening out there, I mean, it's such an interesting part, because I know where you're going, and then you're going to come back around. But in this journey, you didn't just let go, like we're going to talk about here in a second, of just like, hey, if I don't get this job, I'm letting go, I'm surrendering. Like, if the Lord doesn't want it, doesn't want it. We'll get there. But like, this was quite literally you let go to get out of the very department that if you continue to work hard in would allow you to fulfill your dream. And that's a hard thing to do. And obviously, together, I've gotten a chance to meet Chip and Joe and hang out with them a lot. And so I can see the appeal. Amazing people doing things with the highest level of character and heart and all of those things. And just a really good brand, just something fun to do to build a company with great people. But even that aside, that's still then in some ways letting go, but in some ways, did you feel like it was giving up?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And yes, the answer would be there was definitely a part of me that had a little bit of a somber reality of, hey, this journey, you're definitely going a route that probably takes you off the path. And it was something that you had held dear to. And this was probably, now you're in your 12th full-time year. You know, when you add in your school time, it was your 18th year, your 12 years of full-time work, 6 years of school. So like 18 years is not an insignificant amount of time, which you have been making decisions to try to give yourself the greatest opportunity to pursue this ultimate goal. And, you know, pretty quickly, I mean, this wasn't like a multi-year type of decision. This was something that came about, you know, and fortunately, Chip and Joe were very patient in allowing me to process it, but it was a pretty quick decision to pursue that. And I think, you know, if I was honest, Travis, as I considered exiting there at that point, I don't think it fully ever left my mind. And in my head, I was like, how could going out and leading a company of 700 plus employees and, you know, a revenue, a department, I mean, excuse me, a company with higher revenues than the department I was leaving, and most college athletic departments were, that can't be bad. Like that can't be looked at as man, he really took a bad turn career wise. So I would be lying if I say it completely left my mind. It's kind of back to the whole pursuit versus letting go. So I saw it as somewhat of a exit, but also an ability to keep the door open if it so ever, you know, became presented again. And so, you know, it wasn't, I took one step out and I had one foot over on that side and I kept one foot in. I was all in, you know, and that job required me to be all in. And I think pretty quickly on, I realized, hey, there's a lot of fun. This could be, you know, career-wise exactly where you want to be. And this could lead to other things, whether it be right here or somewhere else. So it wasn't like I had always, you know, couldn't quite close the door and I was still keeping my attention diverted in the other way. So I had that, and I had, you know, 4.5 years of just a dream scenario of being in conversations, you know, at the top of media, at the top of retail, with two individuals who just had a lot of trust and willingness to let me kind of drive the ship. And, you know, I certainly made plenty of mistakes in that job, you know, and I tell you, the opportunity to make those mistakes are formative today. They are impacting decisions that I make today. I'm thankful for the opportunities to have made those mistakes in that previous role, but just an incredible blessing to be.
Well, you also had, just to be clear, you're a humble guy. Y'all had some pretty decent success, you, Chip and Joe, during that period of time. So, yes, mistakes, but my goodness, that brand even today. And if you haven't, and you're a listener out there, haven't gone to Waco and just seen what it's all about these days, it's not just a TV show of fixing up some homes. It is a conglomerate, and again, done the right way, which is neat. So you helped grow that. Then what? Because of course, if you listen to the first part of this is where I tried to come in on the scene, folks, and failed. But continue on.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that my time was wearing in terms of just what I could gain from that opportunity, and candidly, what I could provide for them. And that's the beautiful thing about that relationship, is it was such a healthy dialogue where I think, you know, I'd recognize, hey, this is a chance for you guys to lever up in terms of your leadership in this regard. And I think for me personally, a chance to experience some stuff that I was eager to do, specifically to be up on something that's a little bit more ground up as opposed to where that was as a developing kind of maturing company. And so, you know, pursuing the next opportunity was something that was a lot of emotional energy. And that's where, you know, you and I got involved, and, you know, there were some other folks that we talked about at the start that had some ventures in the media space I had some conversations with. And, you know, just fortunate that I had a good friendship with Ben Weprin, who was connected to me because he was the guy that we ultimately built a hotel with Chip and Joe together in Waco. So just really, really fortunate to get to know him, the dynamic nature, and cannot say enough praise for him. That's the common theme for me is, you know, with Chip and Joe, was it Ben, with it Eric, like just worked for people who are just winners and just awesome first-class individuals. And just saw an opportunity to bring a brand that was, you know, certainly had a lot of equity, but to some degree was a little bit out to die in the pasture. And I joke it was a, you know, 150-year-old startup company. And, you know, we raised money and we really brought it back.
What's the name of it?
Field and Stream.
So a legacy publication in the outdoor media space, just an icon in that regard, and got a really good group of people who were vested, interested in making it happen, got them together and pursued it and got it and started on what was ultimately a 3-year journey to revive this brand. And it was another one where you just like to have the opportunities that we had there and to see something from ground up and to write an investor deck and go fundraise and deal with all the challenges that come with a startup company. You cash is tight and waiting for the revenues to turn on and flip cash flow positive. It's a journey, and having to go back like so many other people do in other businesses and go back to investors and ask for more money because the original, raise that we had wasn't enough. Like that, they're just some, lumps you take with that. It's a formative moment in terms of who you are. And, I just think about the collective combination of those two experiences. And I just could not have asked for better experiences to learn, hard experiences, really, really hard, but good people to work with, good people to work for. Common theme for me has always been about being a part of something that helps create and forms memories for people. Yeah. And that's what all the things that I've worked with in my career have provided me the blessing of doing. And so, as I was rolling in this thing, it really, we were at a key point. We'd gotten EBITDA positive. We were about to go cash flow positive. The company was doing well. We had established a really historic relationship with a great retail partner in Tractor Supply, and just a lot of momentum, a lot of energy, and a lot of positives to capitalize on. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, comes this conversation, and it really was. It was really quick from the moment that the conversation started to really develop to the time that I had fully confirmed and accepted and been offered and accepted the role in a warp speed time. And all the emotions probably still haven't fully unwound from that whole process. But here I am today, having so much gratitude, specifically for Field and Stream and those guys, and the grace and the kindness that they allowed me to exit, because the timing wasn't great on that end, but they were awesome. And then the experience with Magnolia to now give me the skill set to now come full circle and tell you, Travis, when I left that job in college athletics, I had assumed that it was going to be a closed door, and I was at peace with it. So it's kind of going back to this
let go.
Pursuit versus let go. And I'd assumed that was it. And now, as I sit here and tell you today, I say to you, I could not have gotten the opportunity had I not let go. Had I not stepped away and say, hey, you don't have control here. This is not you driving the ship. This is not you managing every moment and dictating it. You give this up and you go and you lean in from a spiritual perspective on your faith, and you trust in God's plan. And had I not done that, I would not had the chance to even, I think, pursued and had the opportunity to have the job. But even let's just say I was wrong on that, and I did get the opportunity to do that. I can promise you this: the experience and the knowledge of the last 8 years that I gained, I would not want to be sitting here today have not had that experience. And I'm not saying I got it all figured out or I have all the right answers and I'm perfectly prepared, but I can assure you I'm light years ahead of where I would have been had I stayed put in the previous life. And so thankful, and kind of to the whole thesis of this conversation, you had to let go of the pursuit to ultimately experience what the end goal was.
Whew, what a quote. Yeah, Doug, I mean, and what you're leaving out, because again, you're so humble and I know you so well. And I was with you during a lot of these days over the last 4 years. I mean, you had a lot of big time job opportunities that you haven't mentioned from a lot of big names. And it's just so interesting how that kind of came about. But yeah, so I mean, the storyline of 18 years of pursuing it, to let go, kind of feel like maybe it would come back, doing an amazing opportunity to lead this, international brand now, to then go lead another one. And then you get a call. Mm-hmm. So this is where we got to have some fun, dude. Mm-hmm. It is not every day you get to just talk to someone that is on a great trajectory and is yet in the back of their mind always thought about getting a call. I mean, this is is a fairy tale story. And so what I would like you to share is like, Okay, so talk to us about the call.
Yeah.
And then go as long as I don't need to talk on this podcast. This is so entertaining of like, you get a call out of nowhere, all the events and as much as you're willing to share that lead up to that day of the big interview and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
And then kind of what's unfolded since then. Can you tell us the story?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I feel a little bit like I don't deserve to have, like, I want everybody in life to get to experience the joy and just the magic of that moment. I feel selfish, as if like I got too many blessings of opportunity, even in condensed in that moment. So there's a part of me that's like embarrassed and candidly just feels, selfish. It's like, man, that should have been spread out amongst a larger group of people than just me for all the blessings that I've collectively received. And so I always try to preface it by saying that my gratitude is overwhelming. And I totally give it to a higher power and say thank you, because I know I'm not deserving of it. But I would just say condensed version of it is I was actually.
No, don't go too condensed.
I'll try. All right.
So good.
I'll go a little deeper and you can unpack it as you want. But I mean, it's a condensed story in the sense that it wasn't a long time frame. And that's true. I was actually with investors up for Field and Stream up in Kansas. There's a dear friend / investor of ours who always takes advantage of asking me to come up and speak to an entrepreneurial class at Kansas State. And so I was actually a Big 12 competitor that particular day.
Shame on you, Doug.
And I had a speaking engagement to an entrepreneurial class, which I'd now done 3 years in a row and thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of love and respect for that campus and that family. But I was up there and I was actually late in the afternoon about to go into that class when I got a call from the search firm who was leading this process, asking me what I would be doing tomorrow morning. Keep in mind, I'm in Manhattan, Kansas, about to go speak to a class at 3:30 in the afternoon. And I let them know I was in Manhattan, Kansas, and I was, eventually going to get back to Texas that night. I had a flight out that evening. And they said, well, we would like to talk to you tomorrow morning at 9:30. The president would like to speak to you tomorrow morning at 9:30 if you're able. And so, I certainly was like, well, absolutely, I'd love to. And I knew what it was likely about because there'd been enough, early enough conversations just to kind of where things were. And so it was an overwhelming first call, while also having to then go in and speak to an entrepreneur class with an investor who was currently part of the current venture and speak about the, where I was in this current journey with Field and Stream. So, needless to say, I was a little bit preoccupied while I was in that classroom, but I got back to Texas late that night. I landed in Dallas and drove back home to Waco. And I think I got to bed at, 1 a.m., 1:30 in the morning. And I had a 9:30 visit, with the president and the committee. And, I reviewed some notes and put some thoughts down in paper, knowing this was going to be a important conversation on the plane flight, but it was minimal. And then I got home and, my wife said, hey, let me take our girls to school. I usually try to take the girls to school. And so she said, let me take the girls to school. I said, no, I want genuine, I want routine. And so I took the girls to school, and I felt like I had about an hour window after dropping them off at 8 to go to a local coffee shop. It's actually Magnolia Press, the coffee shop at Magnolia, which I did a lot of work from, and spent about an hour and just, refresh myself and try to be as informed in the conversation as I could so I could connect, with the committee, ensure the president that I was capable and competent to be able to do the job well. And so did that, went and got a cup of coffee, sat down, got my notes out. And this is as true a story as I can possibly say. I did not need to be there in that moment. And there was a compelling challenge and I'd say push from a higher authority for me to say, you're done here. You don't need to be doing this. And it's time to leave here. And I didn't really know what. I was like, well, what am I going to do? Just drive around in circles? What are you going to do? And, that was in the moment where I would just say, it was prayer, it was reflection. And my parents, as you know, all too well, because you were with me with my mom passing and know of my dad's passing just a few months prior. Both had passed away in the previous years. And both were buried, at a beautiful cemetery just right next to the Baylor campus. And so, I go there often. My sisters both live out of town, so I feel a sense of responsibility to kind of be the child that goes and visits mom and dad on behalf of my siblings. And so, when there's key moments or holidays, or just if I got 30 minutes to burn, near campus, I try to go by and see mom and dad at the cemetery and just reflect. And honestly, Travis, I'm candid with you. I don't usually go there without experiencing some tears. And I wasn't a guy that was overly emotional before my parents passed, but I don't go there often without there being some tears. And so, in that moment, I realized, like, you're supposed to go over there and spend some time. Like, you've got a perfect window, you've got time. You're supposed to go over there and sit and be quiet and be with mom and dad. And I tell folks, like, I didn't have tears that day. And that was an anomaly for me, because usually it just prompted tears, even though I've been there, tens and dozens of times since my parents have passed. And so went there and just had a calmness and a peace, and sat there for 20 or 30 minutes and literally sat in the cemetery on the grass next to the headstone and reflected with gratitude and appreciation for all the blessings that I had been provided by them. And I walked back to my car. And
we're minutes before
the
thing for 20 something years you've always dreamed to interview for.
Yeah.
You leave,
walked back to my car, drove to the house, parked, and walked in, 9:15 for an interview at 9:30. And the best thing I can say about that interview was that I knew that there was a 2-hour period to discuss, and then a chance to visit, with the president afterwards in a one-on-one setting. And I thought it was, I thought it had been 10 minutes when we were stopped, and they told us that we were actually 10 minutes over the 2 hours. Like, that's what it was, a conversation. And it was so enjoyable but natural for me, because it was just something that had been so long a passion. And I was speaking from my heart about an institution that I love. And so, and the same thing was true with lunch, is that it was scheduled to be an hour, and after an hour and 15 minutes, I thought it had been 15 minutes long. And someone came in and said, "Hey, this is it. We need to wrap this up." And just an enjoyable, delightful conversation with someone I've come to really, really respect and admire and appreciate and work closely with in our president here at Baylor. And so I left that conversation, and I'll just say I left with gratitude, but I left, there was a little bit, without sounding arrogant, I didn't know what the circumstances were. And it wasn't my business to know how they were evaluating and who else they were speaking to. But I left, like, with a confidence that I had done everything that I needed to do to give myself an opportunity. And I kind of, a little bit of it, Travis, and I'll tell one thing that actually preceded that I should have mentioned. But when I left, actually was a little part of me that was like, I drove off, and there was a little bit like, oh my gosh, I just got that job.
Because you crushed.
But not like in an arrogant way of like, man, you just got that job, and like, hey, you're, pump my chest. I'm such an amazing person.
More of a humble excitement.
Well, it was more of almost like a fear. It was like, oh my gosh, like you messed around, you end up doing what you thought you weren't going to ever do. But it really, I'd never forget that moment where it was almost like it sucked the breath out of you, and you were like, oh, you didn't actually want that job. You just said the pursuit was what you were all about. Now you didn't actually want it. And that was just, that's just an imposter syndrome component. But, the thing I didn't mention before that, and I'm happy to unpack anything, but where I really want to, because it ties back to you, what I think is really relevant for this conversation. And this may be kind of the signature point of what you're getting at, but I did not have the capacity, the confidence, and the peace to go in and speak in a confident way to that group of individuals in the decision-making group and the president, until I had accepted and let go that if this did not happen, that it would not be a failure. It would not be an indictment. It would not be you didn't make it in life. Like, I did not have that mindset, because, and you were a big part of it in terms of just saying, and I always use that. I think you did it. I used the hand motion right here. It's like, God, this is yours. This is your decision. And I want you to know that I'm at peace with it. And I think there's just something to be said. It's kind of like, what's the mindset of a negotiator? Like, when you know where you stand and you're confident in your position, there's just a level that comes out in the way that you articulate
your beliefs and the vision that isn't there if you think you have to have this. If this is I've got no choice but to find success here. It's either this or nothing. Then I think there's a desperation and there's a tone to the conversation which comes out differently. And I would just, again, give you all the praise and a lot of good friends that I've been fortunate to surround myself with that understand who I am and how to ground me in my faith, in my calling. I was at peace and I was confident in that conversation, and even more so after the conversation, even though I didn't know where they were. And there could have been some things that just were non-negotiables that I may not have said, but facts that I couldn't overcome, where the decision might just not have gone my way. And I left with total peace. I've never been so surprised that I was not nervous for the hours after that conversation until I actually got the call. There was no anxiety. There was no anxiousness. There was a total peace and a gratitude, one, for having given the opportunity. I wanted the forum. I had been given the forum, so I was at total gratitude with that.
Right.
But I was also at peace of let go. This is not yours. This is not your decision. And this is you've pursued this with responsibility and with honor. And it's your time to let go. And if it's determined that this is the path for you, so be it. If it's not, it's not. And I think I had that mindset, and it was the difference in the way that the outcome presented itself.
Dude, let's freaking go. So guys, I can say I remember, I don't know what weeks it was kind of leading up to before the interview or whatever, but I got to spend a day with Doug, and he was kind of unpacking it. And he was almost in this state of like, he wanted it so bad, as any of us, we start to put up like defensive mechanisms, like, but they're not going to this, they're not going to that. Right. And I thought I might lose my friend Doug because I knew how badly he wanted it. So guys, I start texting him every day and say, did you surrender more today than yesterday? Yep. And I thought eventually he'd just throw me the bird and be like, stop texting me, friendship over. And every day he'd be honest about it. Yes, no, this time more or not. And it was so interesting to watch, like after some days, leading up to it, the answer was just so purely like, you were good, Doug. Like you just kind of were just like, it's okay. Because when we're faced with finally getting the thing we want to pursue, it's the hardest time to actually then let go at the same time. It's all good when you're in your 18-year journey and you're the young guy trying to make your way up. And it's like, sure. But it's like, no. I've got an interview coming up that if goes well, I will get the spoils of all of my labor, all of my pursuits will happen. And so Doug, like, you did let it go. And I know that is mainly just your faith. And you said, Lord, like, I trust your ways more than anything. But like, I mean, dude, like, you're humble. And I know it's like, you just wish, a lot of people could have this moment, but you have had, and you just had some months ago, a life-changing, life-altering, dreams come true, go to Disneyland moment that most in life will never experience. So like, how about like, we're hearing, this tension of pursuit, letting go. I think you've shared it with us. I'll give you one more chance in a second to just kind of close it out with any parting wisdom of others and how they should manage that. But like for you, I think everyone's probably wondering, like, how does it feel to let go, but pursue something? And then you got it, dude. Like you're the AD of Baylor. That is amazing. How does that actually feel?
I mean it. I undeserving. Like I don't know how to describe it other than with humility and gratitude of like, I don't know, why I was given this favor other than just to say, I'll spend time equally maybe reflecting on that, but then equally as much saying, hey, I am so honored by this, but now to reciprocate that blessing and honor, it's time to go to work. Like it's not enough to be here. And like I started, I think just getting this job and not doing it right would be far worse than never having given this opportunity. It would be, for me personally, I would have such a state of disappointment and letdown because there are very few relationships in my life that have not been, formed by this institution. And so I just have a strong sense of responsibility of, I know how much this place has given to me personally. I know how much it's given so many people that matter to me. And I don't want to let those people down. And I want to work tirelessly every day
And it means more to me because of the life formation that it's provided. So it's an equal balance, Travis, of probably just feeling undeserving and, like just why and how did this happen? While also just saying, okay, it happened. Like, stop, get it past your system. You're here. Yes. Go work hard. Work hard, be respectful, honor the Lord in everything you do, maintain good balance, but work diligently and relentlessly to serve this university. And if you do that, then everything will further take care of itself.
Well, dude, and what a university it is. I mean, my brother went there for law school. And then when Jacqueline went through cancer, Scott Drew was one of the first to write a letter. And these people, Chip and Joe, I mean, my goodness, as an Aggie, I don't think I'm allowed to say it, but sick them. I mean, I love it. And I know the responsibility. So if you're someone listening, I cannot imagine someone I would entrust to university more as a friend to Doug. That is who you want at the helm. I'll just put it that way, from an integrity and a pursuit, and he doesn't lose. I mean, there's just no other way to say it. But I think it's so interesting to be like, man, you pursued it, you got it, and you got it actually by letting go. And now that you're there, you're on another pursuit, which is to build it to be all that the Lord wants Baylor University to be in athletics. But I do think, gosh, it is such a beautiful part of that story that you're in a coffee shop wanting to prep for the biggest interview of your life. You've dreamed of. I mean, it's like the kid that wants to go play in the NBA and it's their first game. Like, it's that moment, and you get led to go to your parents' grave, to sit there in gratitude with no nerves and talk to them, and then just get your butt up, get the grass off because you're sitting in a suit on the grass, which I think is so awesome. And then just straight to the biggest interview of your life. I don't know. I just think it's so inspiring, and if that isn't letting go, guys, I don't know what else is. And so, Doug, we're at the end of the podcast. I wish this could be 2 hours. So many other things we could take away, but for everyone out there, younger, older, maybe they've pursued things and literally gotten to know. And just like you, when you left to go to Magnolia, maybe they're still on that journey and they may never go back. Maybe they're on that journey and they're in their 18 years of trying to do it. Maybe this, maybe that. Like, what is your final words of wisdom to the person out there that's like, dang, Doug, this is so good. I don't know if I'm going to get this thing I'm pursuing, but I do want to manage this tension better because I want to live a balanced life. I want to live a life of excellence, and I can't be broken by what happens. What's your final, guys, this is how you manage this tension?
Yeah, I would just say that even though it may, even in spite of the challenges, and even though it may not always come to fruition, dream big. There's no reason not to. And there is success to be had that doesn't always necessarily equate to that exact achievement of the specific dream, but that doesn't mean you don't dream big. And that doesn't mean, because for me, the answer was whether or not I got to that seat that I achieved, I'd so worked hard to achieve. Where I had gotten to peace in that time leading up to was that right before, where I was closest to it, I was most comfortable with the outcome having not been what I hoped it to be. Yeah. And so it was satisfaction to say, hey, that dream and the pursuit was worth it, even if there was a moment where you had to actually let go of it. And I think that I circle back by saying it's a tension, but the tension does not eliminate the value and the opportunity to dream big in the first place.
Let's go. Well, y'all, you heard it here first. He's got 1,000,001 things to do. He made time to be on this podcast. Doug McNamee, the AD of Baylor, and all the impressive things he's done over the last 20 years. But more impressive than anything, guys, the humility in which he just spoke. I hope that helped you. I hope you now can see that tension. You can accept that you'll never solve it, just like Doug taught us. And now you got some tips on how to manage this thing, but don't stop pursuing. Don't stop dreaming big. Doug, thanks for being on, buddy.
Thanks, bud. This is fun. Let's do it again every day. We'll make it a regular occurrence.
Heck yeah, man.